Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. As you can see, Audie is here with me. As soon as I turned the camera on, he just made a beeline from my lap and hopped up. He is looking for extra attention. I do think it's because he lost his bunnies. He thought he was going to be able to keep them. He got his hopes up. Of course, you know, I'm anthropomorphizing. I have no idea what's really going on in his little kitty head. It could very well be he was looking at those bunnies the same way, you know, the farmer down the street looks at his herd of cattle. You know, it's like, yeah, they're cute now. I'll take care of them, and one day they're going to be dinner. I don't know. I do know that he misses them. I suspect that he's starting to feel a little lonely. This, by the way, can I set you down? We're coming up on the same time of year that his dog passed away. Now, Halloween, it will be 6 years since he lost his dog. But Audie is very sensitive to things like seasonal changes and time of the year. So I'm wondering if that hasn't tripped off a few equations in his little kitty head, because he loved his dog very much. And when the dog became ill toward the end of her life, she was always a little on the sickly side. But Audie would jump up on top of the refrigerator because from that vantage point, he could see her no matter where she was in the area. So he'd get up on the refrigerator and just perch there, staring at the dog. Like, oh, she's in her bed, I'll keep an eye on her. Oh, she's getting up, I can watch her go to her food dish. And he would just, it gave me the creeps, frankly. He would just stare at the dog. And if he didn't like the way she was watching or something, he would just jump down off the top of the refrigerator, and it's like, you know, I'm going to go sniff and see what's going on here. So it's possible that the seasonal change is triggering that period when he lost his dog. And I don't know. I am not a cat psychologist, thank God. But I do think for some reason he is feeling the need for extra attention, and he is coming out a little more. So, and for those of you who say he needs a pet, I know he does, but he doesn't like other cats. And if it's anything much smaller than he is, like a hamster or a bird, then the animal would be at risk because he looks at those things as dinner. And I know he wants his own dog, and I've seen him interact with other dogs, and he bullies them shamelessly. He really does. He just runs roughshod over them. He will bat them in the face. It's like, I'm the boss, you go sit. And I would not want to do that to a small puppy because, frankly, if I brought a small dog in and the cat was just whacking it in the face all the time, the poor little thing would grow up very insecure. So I'm not okay with that. And I'm also concerned that bringing an older dog into the house might be unsettling for him. So I don't know how to resolve this. What I would like to do, you know, in a perfect universe, is take Audie out somewhere to, you know, like an animal shelter and see if he got along with anyone. But I highly doubt any animal shelter is going to let me bring in my spoiled cat and allow him to choose the dog. I just don't see that happening. So I guess it's just him and me for a while. And of course, we've got dogs on either side of us, and they are appropriately cowed. So Audie likes that, and that's what he's going to have to deal with. Plus, of course, he does have the children, and he likes them very much. So, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's hard to be a poor little cat. All right, we are going to take a break for the intro. We will be right back. Okay, speaking of time of year, my allergies have just gone into overdrive the last few days. So I may end up having to take some breaks in the video to blow my nose. If that happens, my apologies. I will make it as discreet as possible. Another little bit of business. This is the scarf that I came from the unboxing I did yesterday from Colleen, and we have nothing but books all over this. And by the way, I've been looking at the titles on the books, and I'm pretty sure whoever designed this scarf was a reader, because there's a little too much Oscar Wilde in this for it to be random. This is not someone who just said, oh, I shall gather me up a selection of books and slap it on a scarf. No, this is someone who is choosing their favorites. Because, yes, the importance of being earnest might show up at random. But Lady Windermere's fan? No. That's from an Oscar Wilde fan. All right. I wanted to finish up, because this is our second weekend, talking about online buying. So, let me begin today with talk about some of the dangers. Some of the things you have to be mindful of in order to do this safely. Because yesterday we talked all about please don't overspend. And as usual, YouTube, whenever I do a video like this, YouTube throws up a whole bunch of other videos on similar themes for me to look at. And the new ones coming up are girl math. And I guess the connection is I did a video about not overspending, and girl math seems to be linked to overspending. And, girl math. When I was in college, I had to take a math competency test. They required that to make sure you had enough math proficiency to be in the college. And it was just an exam. You didn't get graded on it. It was just pass-fail. You either got the required number of questions correct or you didn't. So I went in and took the math competency exam, and I needed to get 30 questions right. It was all I needed, and I would pass. So I went in, I sat down, I took the test, I answered 31 questions. I handed it to the professor, who looked at me, looked at the test, and said, "You didn't finish." And I said, "I did all I needed to do. I need 30 right. I answered 31. So, duh." And I think he said something to the effect of, "You're a cocky little thing, aren't you?" Or words to that effect. It was a long time ago. And began grading it while I was packing up my things to leave the classroom. And as I was walking out the door, he was finishing up. And he calls after me, he said, "Okay, fine, you passed, but it's a good thing you answered that last question." I don't know. To this day, I do not know if I actually only got 30 questions right, or if, in fact, I'd gotten all 31 right, but he felt that I was cocky and he needed to take me down a peg. I could understand that. I know what I was like back then. But that's girl math, just so you know. So I'm not into this whole women can't add to save their lives, because in fact, I'm sort of the math dunce in my family. I have a sister who could and did outcalculate machines when she was younger. She'd just do it for the fun of it. Yeah, so mathematical dunce here. That's seriously my sister. That's girl math. So yeah, we're not going to get into women don't know how to work things out. It's just not true. And I have no tolerance for that at all. All right, moving away from that, because as I say, that is what YouTube is feeding me. When I start talking about overspending, they start giving me videos on girl math. Like, yeah, that's not really a plan. What I do want to talk about is how to do this safely. Now, before you start buying online, get yourself hooked up with one of those payment services like PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, one of those. Not something like Cash App or Zelle or whatever, but one of the really big, really popular ones. You want a popular one because you want something that most vendors accept. But you need something so that you are not required to give your credit card or debit card number to any random person you want to buy from. And the reason for this is very simple, should be very obvious, and I'm sure it is for most of you. If you go to an unknown website and they want a card number, as many do, in order to conclude the transaction, and they're unknown to you, you give them a card number. Maybe, just maybe, this is not a legitimate website. And maybe they are taking that card number. Now remember, you buy something from them, they have your name. They have your address so they can mail the package to you. Most of the time, they will also ask you for your phone number. I never give them mine, by the way. I throw in random numbers. I used to throw in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the algorithm caught on to that. So now I have to do 98765. But I will do random strings of numbers if they reject my, either in numerical order, forward or backwards. You can actually do this. You can do the decimal points of pi if you want to get creative. But the fact is, I don't give my phone number out. You can if you want to. I don't do it. And I never have, frankly. This is something that even back in the day when I would go into stores, back in the 60s, when they would ask for my phone number or even my zip code because they wanted to do their marketing. I had a friend in Denmark. I would give them a Danish zip code. Interestingly enough, even though it was a combination of letters and numbers, and it wasn't 7 digits like a U.S. zip code, they'd usually just write it down anyway, and that was the end of it. But if you've given them all of this information, they know your name, your address, your phone number, then you give them your card, along with things like the expiration date and any security codes. Oh, if they are criminals, they can have a party. You have just made their day. So, do we want to do this? No. I use PayPal for virtually all of my online transactions, unless I am dealing with a company so large that they are bigger than PayPal. I think Amazon, frankly, is bigger than PayPal, but I'm not sure. Doesn't Amazon own PayPal? I don't know. But anyway, for the most part, I will force them to go through PayPal instead of giving them my debit card number, because I don't use credit cards, so I don't even have that additional buffer of a credit card as opposed to a debit card. So if somebody who was criminally inclined got a hold of my card number, they're going right into my bank account. My bad on this, because frankly, I have a couple of almost dormant bank accounts. I keep a few dollars in them to keep the accounts active, but I could just as easily use one of those accounts and use the debit card on that and just transfer money over whenever I make purchases, but I don't do that, which is bad. I need to do that. Gosh, I love talking to you folks, because this is, telling you, it's better than therapy, because I'm able to work out real life problems talking to you. But use some sort of service, especially if you're dealing with a company you don't know. Now, as I say, I make exceptions for big companies like Amazon. I will make exceptions for companies I've dealt with for many, many years, like Macy's or Nordstrom. Walmart is another one I make an exception for. But in general, I try to run a new company or a company I don't do business with very often through my PayPal account. And the reason for this is because that way I hook them into PayPal. They never see my debit card number. They bill PayPal, PayPal bills my debit card, and then, my bank takes the money out of my account. And for me, it's very seamless. But there are so many stopping points along the way that if there was fraudulent activity, there are many places it can be halted. So Just saying, that is my advice. I would stay away from the cash transfer, things like Cash App or Venmo or Zelle, because they do transfer cash, not just to companies, but to human beings. And I don't think they have the same level of security. To be perfectly honest with you, given the fact that I've seen scammers, and by this I'm talking about, the Nigerian bad boy scammers. I've seen them use services like Zelle or Venmo. I would say security is probably not where it should be on those apps. Just saying. Because, in fact, dealing with someone you don't know online has risks. You're giving them your financial information of some sort, your PayPal account or, the credit or debit card number, and hoping that they will send you something in return. But if you've never dealt with them before and you don't know where they are, and you might not, how do you know you're going to get your stuff? And even though we think we know where these online companies are, it's not always true. Now, I talked to you, it was a week ago, I talked to you about a company that I had purchased some sweaters from. These are the people who wanted to punish me for Trump's tariffs. And by the way, they still have not processed my order, just saying. And even though my first order, which is something I ordered from them last fall, 2024, came to me in 3 days' time, leading me to believe they were either in the US or Canada, because I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's not easy to get a package here in 3 days unless you are in North America. Even though, well, yes, I hear you, even though that was my previous experience, after I found out that they hadn't processed my order and read about all that tariff stuff, I looked them up, and it took me about 20 minutes to find out this information. They're in Hong Kong. It was nothing that was conspicuously displayed on their website, and I did have to hunt for the information. So yeah, we don't always know. Therefore, it pays to be cautious. Now, Hong Kong, in general, is not what I would consider an unsafe place to do business. Kind of, sort of. Can you hear Audie? He's cranky. He wants attention. As I said, I know he's lonely, but he needs to be quiet. By the way, this is why I had been hoping I would be able to do the video without him. Yes, I heard you. Everybody heard you. And nobody is impressed. Just saying. So you need to minimize the risk. There is always going to be some risk, but the easiest way to reduce the risk is stick with large companies, companies that have been around for a long time, companies that have a proven track record, companies that maybe you've dealt with or maybe you've just heard of. Now, I've dealt with Macy's, but that's because I'm on the East Coast. Someone in California or Texas might never have done business directly with Macy's. They might not have gone into New York, into their brick and mortar store. But I would assume that most people all over the country have heard of Macy's. That gives you some little level of security. Small, but better than none at all. So that's the starting point. Always try to be as secure as you can when you're doing business online. Don't give your credit card or debit card information to a company you've never heard of before. And if they don't take third-party payments, if they're not willing to use Google Pay or PayPal or Apple Pay or whatever, I don't care how good the deal is. I don't care. It can be the most beautiful dress you've ever seen in your life. It can be $3.42. No, walk away. Just walk away. Because not using established payment services is also a red flag. It's not necessarily a huge red flag. A lot of small companies just starting out might not be set up with these services, but it's a red flag all the same. All right, we're going to walk away from that because I've probably been the voice of doom for long enough. I generally do not have trouble doing business online, but I do know of people who have. So now that we've walked away from that, let's talk about buying secondhand or used clothing online. In general, when you are dealing with used items, you're doing this through a platform. That platform can be eBay, Etsy, places like Poshmark, The Real, Mercari. There are many of them out there. And some of them are, in fact, better than others. If you want to do business with any of these companies or vendors, because, in fact, if you do business on eBay or Etsy, you're really doing business with the individual vendor rather than the platform itself. But the platform does have safeguards in place to protect you. They will have return guarantees. They will have a dispute process you can go through if things are not as they were described. That offers you some protection. So once you've gone past that with eBay and Etsy, and we start looking at other platforms like The Real or ThreadUp or others, their refund replacement policies may vary. Be sure to read through, look at them carefully, because again, if you're dealing with an individual through the platform, yeah, you need that. You need that assurance. Now, if you're dealing with the platform itself, and this is true of places like ThreadUp or The Real, you're actually dealing with the platform. Again, take a look at their policies, but it does give you some degree of protection that could very well be superior to what you would have dealing directly with a vendor through a platform like eBay or Etsy. There's a reason that sellers dislike platforms like The Real or ThreadUp. And if you look at their reviews, the worst reviews come from the people who sell their goods through these platforms. These platforms tend to be more buyer-oriented than seller-oriented. I think in time that will probably change because, let's face it, that's what eBay was like 25 years ago, and they have certainly changed a lot since then. But for the moment, these are platforms that are buyer-friendly. You get something, you don't like it, unless it's clearly marked final sale, no return. You can return it. And some things are, in fact, marked this way on both ThreadUp and The Real. However, having said that, you can actually get some great deals on these platforms. I get scarves from The Real all the time. Ugh. I shouldn't admit this, but I did, in fact, just buy a scarf from The Real like 2 days ago. I know, I don't need more scarves, but this was Rudy Gernreich, and he was the 60s. Well, so was Mary Quant. Okay, Rudy Gernreich was half of the 60s. Mary Quant was the other half. But the idea of being able to get a scarf from this particular designer, and you know how I love my scarves. Oh, I was like, yeah, that is coming home with me. So yes, I bought it. I am such a sucker for scarves. And then I got another new one, so I'm flooded with scarves. Oh, my life is so good. These are platforms where you can return. With The Real, they'll ding you on shipping both ways. Just saying, even if it's their fault, by the way. They will ding you on the incoming and outgoing shipping. But the fact is, the most you can lose on this is about $15. And if you're looking to buy a $400 or $500 Hermes scarf on The Real, $15 is not bad at all. It could be so much worse. ThreadUp also has good return policies. I've never tried to return anything to them. I don't know how stringent they are on shipping policies. I have seen that, if there are problems, if it's not as described, they will certainly take it back for free. But when we talk about The Real, we're talking about a platform that is going to give you items in very good condition. Their descriptions are accurate, and you will get an item that is clean and in good repair, unless they've specified. And sometimes they will sell things that are in shabby condition if it's something huge and massive. So you might go in and grab a Chanel scarf, and if they're selling it to you for $50, yeah, there may well be a hole in it, but they'll tell you about it. With ThreadUp, they're a little harder to deal with, and I think I mentioned that I have purchased from them, and my biggest complaint with ThreadUp is everything I get from them must be laundered immediately, which is all well and good when it's an item that can be laundered, but if it's an item that is not going to be easy to launder, if it has to go to the dry cleaner instead, yeah, you're going to want to factor that cost into your overall purchase price. So it's all well and good to say, that's a great pair of wool slacks and it's only $20. Except no, it's $35 because you've got to bring it to the cleaner, and that's probably going to cost you another $15. And why are you going to need to bring it to the cleaners? Because I have no idea. I wonder if ThreadUp isn't operating out of like some sort of horror movie, like Pet Cemetery sort of complex, because the things I have gotten from them smell unbelievably bad. They really do. So that's your warning if you're going to deal with these people. Yeah, everything's got to be cleaned. If it's cotton, if it's linen, even if it's most silks, it's probably washable. If it's wool, some wools are washable, some are not. Just keep that in mind. And if you are aware of what you are buying, and again, that is key, you can get really good deals on second-hand sites. There are some out there, by the way, that specialize in blue jeans, and that's all they sell. It's like, you go there, they're selling nothing but denim. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You want a handkerchief? You're not getting it from them. You want a pair of blue jeans? Oh, they've got you covered. And these people are experts at what they sell, and they tend to give you very good descriptions, and they will help you find what you're looking for. So you don't know you want a pair of blue jeans, you just write to them and say, I'd like the kind of blue jeans that were fashionable in the 1980s, the ones we used to call mom jeans. They will find those jeans, not just something that looks like them, but they'll find you actual 1980s mom jeans. So yes, they can be fantastic. I know there is at least one in the US and there's one in Canada, and if I can find their names, I'll throw them in the video notes. Otherwise, just Google secondhand jeans and they'll come up right away for you. Very easy to deal with. But if you are buying online, know your measurements. Where are we? Should be right here because I never go very far without this little button. Know your measurements. Get a tape measure like this. This one is plastic. It's flexible, but it doesn't stretch. Inches, centimeters. Know your measurements. If you are buying a blouse, you are going to need to know the length you need. ThredUp, by the way, deals with most of their products with length. I don't know why. In women's clothing, it's probably the least important measurement, but anytime you go there, they'll tell you the length. You're going to want to know your bust measurement. You're going to want to know your waist measurement, your hip measurement. If you're going after trousers, you need your inseam measurement, and that's the seam from your crotch down to your ankles. You're going to want all those measurements because a lot of times items on the secondhand market have come in from all over. If they've come from the United States, you might think, oh, I'm American, I know these sizes. But what happens if it's come in from France? So you need the measurements. If you know your measurements, you'll be able to get the correct size, or at least close to it. Also, remember that, excuse me, he's getting really, really testy. Sorry about that. I needed to deal with a bad cat. Okay, you need to know your measurements to effectively shop online. But remember, even then, you really can't be 100% sure. So deal with a company, a service, a seller, a platform that will allow you to return items if you don't like the way they fit. Now, I've gotten things, secondhand items online, and even though, yes, the fit was correct, in other words, the measurements all lined up the way they were supposed to, but for whatever reason, I would put it on, and my goodness, did it look strange, just really strange. And in fact, most recently, I got a pair of trousers from ThredUp. When they came in, I realized as soon as I saw them, they were not women's trousers, they're men's trousers. By the way, I'm not disappointed with this. They were men's Gurkha trousers, and I have been interested in getting a pair of Gurkha trousers for a while, even though they don't make them in women's sizes. This gave me an opportunity to try on men's Gurkha trousers, see if I could get them to work for me, and I looked at the tag, I found the manufacturer, I was able to trace back to the manufacturer, and now I have a whole new resource for trousers. So, was that a loss? Not even close. It was a win. But there was another pair I got. I don't remember the company they were. Land's End. All right, there you go, Land's End. Nothing against Land's End, it's good company. But for some strange reason, those trousers just really fit me very, very oddly. And I'm not sending them back, by the way. I mean, I can't at this point because my return window is closed. But even at the time, I wouldn't have. I only paid like $10 for them. And because of that, and we've talked about this before, if I manage to get a really good deal, rather than send it back for $10 in store credit that I'm not really sure I want, that might only encourage me to spend more money than I should be spending, because, $10, I might have to add a little more to that, And then that's how it works, by the way. This is why they do it. For me, I look at that and say, $10, I'm going to donate these trousers because they're very good trousers, and I'm just going to pass this deal off to someone else. In other words, I'm donating $10 out of my pocket, but I'm putting $30 or $40 worth of clothing on somebody else's back. Hey, that's a win in my book. And that is one of the things that can make online secondhand shopping very valuable for you. If, in fact, you're okay with donating the very great bargains, you can really stretch your donation dollar. And for those of you who regularly make donations, you know who you are. You're going to do it anyway. You know you are going to give somebody money. Wouldn't it be nice if that $10 you were giving them could actually buy them, in effect, $30 or $40 worth of something they could use? So, yeah, I think there are a number of ways to look at it. But I did want you to be aware of this. These are the pitfalls of online selling. So, third-party payment services so that you don't have to give a stranger your card information. When doing secondhand buying, well, actually when doing any buying, try to stick with people you know, with companies you've heard of, at the very least, companies you've heard of before. If you've dealt with them, so much the better. Online, when you're looking at secondhand clothing, measure everything. Look for the return policies. Make sure you won't get stuck with something very expensive. And my theory on all of this, by the way, because, remember, it's my mother on my shoulder, and I get so much of my buying advice from her, is I always start out small. If I buy something from somebody the first time around, I'd make sure I'm not spending more than I can afford to lose. And this is if I have to give them my credit card, if I have to go through directly with them. I make sure I can swallow the loss if it comes to it, because I do know that the internet is not as safe. I was going to say it's not as safe as it once was, but I don't think it's ever been as safe as we all thought it was. I think that with the surgence of social media, we are just hearing more about the people who have been burned and have been scammed. But I think there's always been a certain percentage of the population out there that has had bad internet experiences. Just, it hasn't always been brought home to roost with us. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. This was an online purchase. I should probably tell you about this. I got this from Target online. I specifically went to Target looking for this. This is another very effective way to use internet shopping. I went into Target. They had a whole stack of these wonderful little burgundy tank tops. Like, oh, yummy, I want one of those, but they didn't have my size. So I trot back home again, go online, target.com, burgundy tank top, here you go. That is another way to use online buying. Go into your favorite store, you see something you like, you don't see it in your size, or you don't see it in your preferred color, hit their online site. Their website probably does have the size or color you're looking for. And most of us don't even think about that. We've gone into the store, they don't have it. I know it took me about a month of continuously looking for these before it finally occurred to me, go online. They're going to have it there. Sure enough, they did. I got it, came in the mail. Life is good. All right, that's what I have for you today. We did get a chance to see Audie. He did complain and whine and grumble quite a lot. So, yeah, you get to see what life is like for me here with a cranky cat. But overall, he's really pretty good. He's just fussy lately. But yeah, you did get some Audie time, so we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. And because this is our Colleen weekend, remember Colleen's scarf today, we are going to look at another one of Colleen's Halloween slideshows on the way out. Thank you so much for being with me. For those of you who stay around for the Just Chattin', that'll be 8 o'clock this evening. That's New York City time, 8 p.m. And for everybody else, I look forward to seeing you next weekend. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.